హలో గైస్, మీరు జాబ్ ఇంటర్వ్యూకి ప్రిపేర్ అవుతున్నారా? జావా, ఎస్క్యూఎల్ లాంటి కోర్సెస్ నేర్చుకోవాలనుకుంటున్నారా? అయితే నా ఛానల్ సబ్స్క్రైబ్ చేసుకొని పక్కనే ఉన్న బెల్ ఐకాన్ క్లిక్ చేయండి. నేను వీడియో పెట్టగానే మీకు నోటిఫికేషన్ వచ్చేస్తుంది.
So next is small concept called this keyword. So why we use this keyword, we will see without any this keyword, we will see how it works. And then what is the use of this keyword, we will see. So let's create two variables again. So public integer id equals to 1001, or simply without putting anything, we will create public string name. So we have two things. We don't have any values to it. We wanted to assign values to this by using parameterized constructor. So whenever we create the object, we will send the values and we will assign. So for this, what we need? We need parameterized constructor. So run as source generate constructor using fields. So for these two things we want to create, right? So we will generate. So it is internally taking this keyword. First I will remove this keyword and we will see how it works internally. Now I will create a object for that. And while creating the object only, I will send the values so that ID and name should have those values. Our expectation is that. So this keyword example1 equals to new this keyword. So it is expecting two values. What are the two values it is expecting? So first is integer, second one is name. So string. So first I will send 1001 and the name is something like hash. So I am sending this one. So now our expectation is if you print that value, example dot, we will put ID, then or in the same thing we can put ID. I am displaying ID plus, then name also I can display in the same thing. So example1 dot name. So I am printing both the things in the same line instead of going to other name. So I will execute this. Our expectation is what? ID should be 1001. My head should be the name. These two things should be printed. That is our expectation. If we print, it is showing null and null because it's not assigned that values to that. Because initially these values are null. So that's why, but here we are assigning, right? For this ID, we are assigning whatever we are sending, but it is not assigning because we are using the name as ID here. Whatever the inputs we are taking, local variable names, we are using ID and name. If you see the colors of this, these are different. So if you see, this is in some brown color or yellow color, this is in blue color, which says these are global variables, these are local variables. So if there is a coincidence where global variable names and local variable names are same, in this scenario, if you wanted to assign it to global variable, so that is this variable, right? So in this scenario, what it is trying to do here is, instead of assigning with this variable, it is this ID value is assigning with itself. So ID equals to ID it becoming. So instead of assigning it to this value, it is assigning with this value only. So that's why this ID is not changing. This is always null. So if you want to assign to this value, you have to use this dot keyword. Then if you see the color is changed to blue. Then if you use here this dot name, so it will become refer to this. So there is, if there is a situation where global variable name and local variable name both are same, in that scenario, to refer global variable, we have to use this keyword. or else it won't assign it to global variable. It will assign to local variable. You can ask why we need to use the same name when we are getting this confusion. In real time, what will happen is when you have 100 number of variables, the global variable name is ID. So you want to, whatever the value is coming to this, you have to map it to this ID, right? So in those scenarios, what we will do is we will put the same name so that we won't get confused. So the local variable ID will be mapped to this ID. If you give some other name here, number, and the name is here ID. So you don't know what is number and what is ID. If you have the same names, you can easily map. If you have different names, every other people may get confused. So that's why generally local variable and global variable names will be same. But to identify which one is global variable, which one is local variable, we will use this keyword. So if you have this keyword, then it is a global variable. If you don't have this keyword, it is a normal variable. Now I will run the same program because I have used this.
Here, this keyword is the method in the class name.
This keyword.
The class name.
No, this keyword.
Only this keyword. To match it those variables.
This one.
Yeah.
This is a constructor.
Inside the constructor, we have to write like this dot ID. That ID is local variable or global variable.
If you use this dot, this means it is a global variable. If you don't use this one, it is a local variable.
But global variable we can be accessing right?
We can access. We can access, but how do you tell that we are accessing global variable? By default, what will happen is, so we created a global variable here. We are not creating again. We are just using whatever we created here. Any confusion? So I will explain you. Instead of taking ID here, we are taking some other name, ID1. So then you don't need to mention this keyword because this is different and this is different. Directly it will be assigned to this. The confusion comes when you use the same names, ID, and this is also ID. So in this scenario, compiler don't know which ID we need to take. So what it will compiler internally do is, it will consider local variable only because first preference in the method will go to the local variable. That's why it is like ID, it will have 101, right? We are assigning 1001 with 1001 again. So that is not what our expectation. Our expectation is ID is there, this is null. For this, we have to assign this 1001. So it won't pick automatically the global variable. So to tell the computer or system to say that instead of picking the local variable, take the global variable and assign it. So in that scenario, we will use this dot keyword. So if you use this, we are saying if you have something called ID local variable, neglect that, don't take that, take the global variable. So ID equals to 1001. So like that, it will be assigned. Now, if you run the same code after writing this keyword, it will be 100. Because earlier it is not assigning the value to this. When we use this keyword, so it is referring to this ID, so it is assigning.
We are passing the value global variable, right?
We are not passing the value to global variable. We are passing locally. So that's why this local variables. Global variable means if we put outside those only global variables. If you use whatever inside here, these are local variables. But to refer the global variable, we should use this dot keyword. To avoid the confusion, you can use the different names also so that this confusion won't come. But real time, they won't use different names. Local variable, global variable, they will use the same name so that everyone will know what is ID, which one we need to map. So that scenario.
This dot ID equal to ID means the global variable, this dot global variable is stored in local variable.
No. Local variable, we are sending value. We are sending 1001 from here. So 1001, initially it will be there in this ID because we are sending, right? It will get mapped with this one. So ID will have 1001, name will have whatever the name we shared. Now this dot ID is empty.
So it is stored in global variable.
No.
This dot ID is global variable.
This dot ID is global variable. So initially this is null. Okay, ID is null, name is null. We need to assign these values. So first we are sending it to local variable. Then from local variable to we are mapping it to global variable. Directly you cannot map. So if you want to directly map, instead of sending in the constructor, here we need to assign. Example done. But we are using constructor right here. So that's why instead of directly assigning, first we are sending 1001 to this local variable. So ID will have 1001, name will have that name. So this 1001 local variable name, we are assigning with ID, global variable. Now that's why when you print this example.id global variable, it is printing 1001.
This is global variable.
This we are assigning here with global variable. And this name is also global variable, we assign with local variable. Or if you don't have this constructor, then this also you don't need. Directly what you can do, you can create empty object, this dot keyword, example equals to new, this keyword, then example dot id equals to 1001. This is like every time we have to send. So three lines we have to execute. That's why instead of repeating this code, example dot name equals to Rahul. So every time instead of like putting these things, then if you create one more object, what you have to do? Example one, then example dot id you need to set, name you need to set. To avoid these two lines, directly we are passing here and putting in some local variable. That local variable we are assigning with global variable. That's how the constructor under these variables works. So this is simple example. We have one constructor where it is taking two values, two local values. Those two local values we are assigning it with global values. But how we are ensuring that we are using global variable only means we are using this keyword. So if you use this keyword, it will directly assign it with global variable. If you don't use this keyword, this global variable won't be referred. So if you want to refer the global variable, better this dot id. Even if the name is different, still you can use this keyword. So we are clearly saying use the global variable instead of local variables. So that is the importance of this variable.